Welcome to Inspiration Inc. We have a very special guest with us, a guest whom we can call the guiding light, a guiding star. We have Sri Sadhguru with us. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on Inspiration on ET Now. And first of all, I have a very basic question for you. How do you manage to inspire so many people relentlessly with so much of energy? How does that happen?
Well, we must understand the word inspire. Inspiration means you set somebody on fire. You can set somebody on fire today and tomorrow morning they could be off again. So the important thing is, before you set fire to them, you put enough substance or fuel into them, in the sense. So you need to be every day inspired about something only when you have not realized the significance of what you're doing. If you understand the significance of what you're doing, if you really grasp the significance of what you're doing, then you will not need any inspiration. Just to put it in context, let's take a very simple act, something. Right here, we're on the edge of the, ocean. There are, fishermen's boats are there. A fisherman can go fish and sell the fish in the market, complain about the prices and lack of fish in the ocean and many things, all right? Even ocean is not good enough.
True. Yeah.
But if he just sees whatever the food that he provides to people is nourishing people and it makes their life, if every day if he's conscious of the significance of his simple work that he's doing, he will not need anybody telling him to wake up in the morning and do things.
Right.
So like this, it doesn't matter what is the nature of our activity. If we are conscious in how many ways our activity is impacting lives around us in a significant way, then you will not need anybody to inspire you, you're on.
I've heard your sessions, and one thing which you have mentioned repeatedly is, your moment of inspiration around 37 years ago, when one fine day suddenly you felt ecstatic and then it stayed with you, it kept coming back. Can you just explain that part?
How to explain ecstasy, huh?
Yeah.
Well, there are only two things that human beings can suffer. One is, it can be physical or it can be mental.
Mental.
But it's largely mental, unless there is an injury or there is an ailment. Physical pain may happen because of external sources, which may not be in your control. But mental pain happens essentially because you're on self-help of pain.
Correct.
So when one day I suddenly realized, if I don't mess with my mind, I'm just ecstatic by my own nature.
Isn't that the most difficult thing to do, not to mess with your mind?
If you have found access to life, you will find mind a very small thing in your life. If you have not found access to life, your mind will be the largest thing in the universe. It's bigger than the universe actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, right now everybody was talking about phones even today, as if phone is some kind of a terrible thing doing terrible things to us. They don't know what it is. When we were growing up, we grew up with a thick black phone where your fingers would fracture by the time you do 10 calls, all right?
And for a trunk call, you will call
Yeah,
operator.
you have to shout
first.
all the way.
Yeah.
Now, you have such a convenience and you're complaining about it. You're not complaining about the phone, you must understand. Your problem is that you are in cycles of compulsiveness. You're suffering your compulsiveness, not the phone, not the food, not the work, not anything. Somebody came to me in this city, someone who is a CEO of a multinational company heading their global operations, big company. He came to me in a terrible state and, Sadhguru, I can't take this anymore. They're just pushing me to the limits every day and it's just impossible. I looked at him, he was in real misery. I raised my hands and said, may you be fired. Sadhguru, what you're doing? I said, well, you're suffering your job so much.
Better get fired.
Yeah, at least you can walk on the beach. And I'm sure somebody else is eager to take that job.
Right.
So, if you're fired, you'll be miserable. If you're in the job, you're miserable. If you don't find a job, you'll be miserable. Tell me, what is it? The problem is not with the job, the problem is not with the family, the problem is not with the nation or the world. You do not know how to manage yourself. But you're supposed to be a human being, that means you know how to be. If you knew how to be, what would be the problem? See, any instrument that's given to you, whether it's a phone or a brain, if you don't know how to handle it, it'll mess you. That's all it's doing.
So this inner engineering that you referred to, one, how does one become conscious about it? And two, after becoming conscious about it, how does one sort of re-engineer the inner engineering,
Do you drive?
Yes, I do.
Are you a good driver or you kill people every day?
I am a reasonable driver, so I
Haven't
would
killed
say.
anybody?
No, not
So,
at all.
okay, we'll certify you as a good driver.
Yeah.
If you're driving, what is it that you're doing every moment? You're doing… what is that? Constant adjustment, isn't it?
Yes.
You know how to drive, can you just press the throttle and hold it like this? No, you're constantly doing that. Isn't that true with this machine also? To keep it balanced and well, you have to constantly be conscious of what you're doing. For 2 minutes, if you become unconscious when you were driving your car, would you kill someone else or yourself?
Either of it.
Yes. So that's all that's happening right now. For long periods of time, people are just not conscious of what's happening. You may call it stress, anxiety, misery, sadness because of this, because of that. No, no, no. Essentially, you are killing yourself. You're taking the life out of yourself because not conscious enough. Unconsciously, you're trying to drive. Obviously, there's going to be misery, isn't it? If at all, if you had a free run, it was a Sunday early morning, no traffic, maybe you fell asleep in your car and still you survived.
For little bit, if
Yes,
not.
that is how people are surviving. That is why there is so much fear about their existence. That is why they're seeking help from every corner in the universe.
Correct.
But if you knew how to drive, you would drive well, isn't it?
But it's easier said than done, so. I mean, for someone like you, obviously
See,
it's a daily thing.
it is not easy or difficult. It is just that for someone who does not know how to drive, for him, driving is an impossible thing, isn't it? Let's say you don't know how to cycle. Balancing on 2 wheels and riding is an impossible thing, isn't it? But for someone who knows how to cycle, you think he's specially equipped, he has some other balancing technology inside?
Is the learning, basically.
No, no. Does he have some other organ inside which helps him to cycle
That's what
well?
I'm saying, it's not.
So why are you saying I'm something freak? I'm not a freak, all right? This is how a human being should be, that he knows how to be, first of all. Afterwards, many skills in life. So for this, you don't need a special organ inside. I am not implanted with any special organ.
Right.
Like a person who's learnt how to cycle, effortlessly cycles. Hands-free also he cycles, isn't it? He sings a song, he whistles, he's fine.
Right.
Special organs? No, he just learned how to balance,
Correct.
that's all. So inner engineering is just that, a simple methodology.
That's true. This in fact, one of the theme for this conclave was a $5 trillion economy, and I mean, India, such a large country, young country, such a large consumer base, so it is bound to get there. But what is happening at society level or at social level is, while India is becoming a larger economy, bigger economy, the discontent, dissatisfaction, stress, anxiety, all this is growing. So we are not becoming a happier country, we are becoming a bigger country, but not necessarily a prosperous or a happier country. How do you observe? What are your thoughts on that?
See, as a culture, this culture invested phenomenally for inner well-being of the human being. I was talking about 16 parts of the mind. In the yogic culture, it is said, out of the 16 parts of your mind, if you invest 1 part of your mind for your external well-being, that's enough. 15 parts of your mind should be focused on your inner well-being, because this is where the real challenge is. If your activity in the world has to find purchase, has to be impactful, the most important thing is how you are. How sharp is your intelligence? How dynamic is your body? How capable is this whole system to negotiate through various situations and googlies that come your way anyway? inevitably. The more active you are, the more
Google
challenging situations come your way, there's no question about that. But without preparing this, because right now we've become goal-oriented, we've taken to Western ways of doing things, we've become goal-oriented. Once you become goal-oriented, you're only interested in the consequence. You're not interested in the process.
Right.
One thing that I'm putting back into people, into businesses, into our own system, our own organization, into the world is being devoted to the process. If you don't do what you're doing right now very well, your consequence is just a hallucination, isn't it?
True.
So, you don't have to think in terms of it's all right for the government to have those objectives, but people need not think we want to be $5 trillion economy. 1.3 billion people, if they function intelligently, in a focused way, in an inspired way, we can be the largest economy on the planet in no time, all right? There is a certain process to it, I'm not saying no. But in the process of getting to an economic scale, are we losing our basic well-being? There are consequences to speed. When we move at a certain speed, there will be certain amount of wear and tear.
Right.
But here in this culture, we came up with phenomenal technologies. As there is a science and technology to create external well-being, there is a whole science and technology to create inner well-being. We are the source of this technology and science for the world. But unfortunately, we are not using that. Right now, in the last 4 years, well, our Prime Minister is trying to teach yoga to the people, okay? He lies down on the street and does yoga with common people, which has never been done before.
Right.
But we are seeing religious and political intent into it. This is very significant, that the yogic system has to become alive in our society, not because the Prime Minister is doing it. First of all, why should a Prime Minister be teaching us yoga?
Yes.
This has been our ethos. This nation is first
part of our
explored…
life.
Yes, explored this dimension of science as to how to manage your body, your mind, your inner energies, the entire life process, how to keep it at its highest possible level. But because we missed out, a political leader is trying to demonstrate to us, well, the International Day of Yoga has taken it to the world is picking up in a big way. India also is doing some job, but it's very important, the economic leaders, the business leaders should take to it. I want to make sure this country first experiences the well-being of this science. We are offering it to the entire world, but it's important that our people should know this.
The recent performance of the government, and I'm not asking this to you for some happening soundbite. I want to look at it from your perspective or your prism. The developments recent past in the country, be it the election results, be it what was happening between government and RBI, or the way Indian economy was going through the volatile period because of the crude and the way crude was behaving, or what we saw in stock markets. It's all very stressful at society level also, at government level also, at economic level also. What are your thoughts on that?
See, some basic changes which we are trying to make to our economic structure is actually very foundational. When you try to change the foundations of a building, or try to fix the foundations of a building, certain pieces of the roof will fall on our head. That's the way it is. It hurts. Without that pain, we will not come out of it. Everywhere people are telling me, because of GST, all small businesses are hurt. It is true. We are also hurt because just to figure out how this GST is so complex and whatever. But now slowly people are figuring it out. But what I want to say is, yes, small businesses are hurt, it's true. And unfortunately, it's a large segment of our economy and it's hurt. But if we don't fix some fundamentals now, forever India will be a small business. If you want India to become big business in the world, These fundamentals have to be fixed. I would want it to be fixed at a much faster pace, but democratic politics do not allow quick fix. Quick fixing is not allowed because lot of pain will happen.
Right.
That pain if you're not ready for, there'll be no transformation. Our very birth is in pain, isn't it? If our mothers are not willing to go through the pain, we are not born.
True.
So, there is pain in transformation, but transformation is always worthwhile.
Correct. So even in the recent elections which just concluded, somewhere the debate and the discussion shifted from development, which has been the cornerstone of the election campaigning for quite some time now. It shifted from there to Ram Temple, to renaming of cities and things like that. Somewhere are we mixing up the priorities? Nobody is talking about jobs, nobody is talking about water security. India is a thirsty country.
See, about economy, this whole jobs business is just something we borrowed from American election campaign. India doesn't run on organized jobs. It is also needed, but India runs at various levels, okay? There was a time in early 90s, I think, only, I think 6 or 7% of Indians were actually in formal employment. Rest were all self-employed in some way. So still we are in that condition, maybe that percentage has significantly improved, but seeking government jobs or organized jobs is not the only way this nation and this economy is done. So this talking about jobs, yes, it's important for young people, but it's also very important. The most important, I think the only temperature gauge for us should be, is the market buzzing or no?
Yes.
The rest of it, you don't worry. Somebody will find a job somewhere. If the market is buzzing, if economic activity and commerce is happening, it's everybody's business to see how to fit into it. You don't sit and wait, I got educated and I'm waiting. Some job should come to me looking for me. No, that is not the only way. About election rhetoric, it's unfortunate the way it has become, but it does not mean economic issues are in the back burner. Generally, everybody is already aware of the economic issues. So, the last bit of the election, they are talking about the emotive issues.
Yeah.
Talking against each other, it's all kinds of things, all right? Temples and mosques and everything will come into play. This is the last mile pitch. So, don't take the last mile pitch as the only pitch. Development has been spoken about.
But do you think we are close to the solution of the temple problem? Do you think so? Because everybody has been working towards it.
See, now
to find
I
a cohesive
think,
solution.
the courts have brought it to a place where it's just a property dispute. Property dispute can be settled. When it's a fight between when people are fighting for their gods, you can't settle it.
Yeah, you can't settle.
When you're fighting for a piece of property, there is a way to settle it. I believe it's close enough.
That's nice. When it comes to India, everybody believes that India has a very bright future, great future, will be great country and will become this economy, that economy. The problem begins when you ask them about their own self, when you ask them about their future, that 10 years down the line, where do you see yourself? 15 years down the line, where do you see yourself? That's where the vagueness starts coming in, that's where that, confidence starts shaking. So, probably, I think at individual level, this Rise with India is still not resonating in the consciousness of…
See, that's because India's education is not skill-based. It is simply Her Majesty's service, or not even that, it's East India Company's education system. Simply we are reading everything and not learning anything in a focused way. Because it's not skill-based, individuals don't know what to do with themselves.
Correct.
See, if you go and sit in a local tea shop, I'm sorry, let me say a coffee shop, because tea has become a big controversy now in the country. If you sit in the local coffee shop, that guy knows what's wrong with Tendulkar's batting technique.
Yeah.
He knows. He knows how the Prime Minister doesn't know what to do with the economy. Only thing is, he doesn't know how to make good coffee or tea. What he is supposed to do, he doesn't know, everything else he knows. This is how our education system is. It tells you everything except what we are supposed to do.
Well said. What would be your message to the Indians at this point? Because I think as a country, as an economy, as a political country also, we are at a very interesting inflection point at this point. Your message.
See, we are on a threshold.
Yes.
When I say a threshold, for the last 15-20 generations, the people of this nation have gone through terrible states of deprivation, economic and otherwise. For the first time in the history of humanity, in recent times or for the first time in the history of humanity, the only nation which moved its billion people from one level of existence to another was the Chinese Republic. But they did it with enormous force and pain, a lot of bloodletting, but they did it. In my opinion, this is a very dangerous opinion, trouble opinion for me, but in my opinion, keeping a large mass of people in poverty for generations is worse than that little bit of killing that they do. Well, they didn't do little bit, a lot of killing happened, but they moved 1 billion people from one level of existence to another. But we are in a unique situation. Today, if we do the right things for the next 5 to 10 years' time, we will move something like 800 million people from one level of existence to another through a democratic process without bloodletting. This is a unique happening in the history of humanity. Never before such a mass of people have been moved from one level of living to another. We are sitting on the threshold. Do we have the courage and the commitment to cross the threshold and make it happen? This is a big question for every Indian. Are we willing to do what is good for the nation beyond our personal well-being if necessary?
Right.
This
The
is something…
sacrifice that…
This is not a sacrifice, this is just sense. This is long-term investment for life. Why do you call it a sacrifice? It's not a sacrifice. If I plant a coconut tree and I don't get anything for 8 years, is it a sacrifice? No, I'm investing for long-term well-being.
Yeah, right. I think that's the best thing about this discussion, that it leaves us conscious and it leaves a lot for us to think about how we conduct ourselves.
See, nation is not a piece of land, nation is people. If we do not enhance the quality of the people, we will not enhance the quality of the nation.
Right.
There is no way for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
let's
sir.
make it
It's
happen.
been a pleasure. Thank you. We'll make it happen. Thank you.